Hello everyone, this is John from RPGs and More, and in today's episode I'm going to take a break from my usual thing and start and talk about a OSR role-playing game that I haven't mentioned before too much, that I really enjoy, and I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive and an explanation of why I think it's pretty cool. And that game is White Lies, a role-playing game about doing bad things for good reasons, and it is by Bill Logan. White Lies is based in part on, Swords and Wizardry White Box, or that style of gaming, all right? Where they take that concept of keep it simple, keep it basic, to 1974 style D&D, but with unified save results. But what this one does is it takes it and it places it in the modern day. In a game setting that would be right at home with things like the movie Ronin, or anything by Tom Clancy, or anything, Boondock Saints 1 or 2. Basically, what it does is it gives us the setting of a modern day world that doesn't have a whole lot of fantasy in it. You don't have to have any fantasy in it at all, in fact, if you don't want to. And you can do heists, you can do breach and clear, fetch missions, you can do exploration if you want to. You can do a lot of different things with this game. Now, what's kind of neat about it is it's a really small-sized, digest-sized game. All right, not hard to get your hands on with that way, and it's not too thick. It gives you a lot of information. But first, since this is something that I feel very passionate about, how readable is it? Well, I'm happy to say that White Lies is actually on the readable scale for people with visual impairments. My best corrected vision is about 2200. And I can tell you right now, with my glasses, I can read this game book without much problem at all. I think it's very comfortable to read. The titles and the borders are very easy to see, and that's an important thing. Even the table of contents is easy to grasp, despite the fact that it kind of there's a little bit of bleed through it. I don't know if you can see it, bleed through from the page before, but that's a nature of the paper. But it really doesn't detract too much, so that's good. All of the little section headers are these big red letters, and then all the smaller headers are also slightly less big, but still pretty large and red. The art is this really kind of neat red and black silhouette style that I think sets the tone quite nicely. It makes it seem very James Bond in some places without actually being James Bond. So you can still put your own kind of twist on things. All right, so let's look at the attributes: strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, dexterity, charisma. Sounds familiar. All right. And then we go on to, there's no so they have a thing called action checks. And the action check, I'm just reminding myself of it so I don't make sure I get the rule correct. The action check is something that you can call for if it is something that you think your character might be able to do, but it's not really covered by any of the other rules that you see elsewhere. You roll an action check, and on a d6 and on a 4 up, you get it. You're able to get this action done. Obviously, DM approval pending, but it's kind of a cool thing. It's cool that they have this as an added option. I just got scratched by my cat. That was lovely. Go away. All right, but let's get back into the meat of things. So action checks are neat. They're a neat add-on here, but I'm not going to go into too much in depth in them because that would require me to sit down and reread the section, And we don't have time for that because I don't want to have a heck of a long video. So let's look at character classes. Character classes are pretty standard stuff. First off, everyone's human. I don't know if I really had to explain that part, but let's make sure that you understand. Every character is considered to be human. There are no different races. So you go straight to classes. Classes are the confiscator. That's your thief. They confiscate things. The eliminator, which is kind of like your fighter class. They kill things. The infiltrator, that's your sneak. The investigator, I don't think I have to explain that one. And the transporter, your driver. So a lot of those roles will sound very familiar, especially to anyone who is a fan of the movie Ronin, or any of the other older heist car-based movies that always had neat car chases through cities in Europe or the United States. So you always going to have different people with different specialties that work as part of a team, and each one of those classes is covered here. Obviously, if you want to do something that's more military-based, you might have more eliminators than you would confiscators, but you also still would have a need for your infiltrator, and you're probably going to have a need for a transporter because someone's got to drive the armored personnel carrier, an APC, excuse me. The other thing you can do, and what this book actually suggests, is there is a secret organization that is kind of like, think of it as like the Men in Black, but not necessarily for supernatural things, but the Men in Black for the things that we don't want the FBI to have to deal with. So kind of like Mulder and Scully, but with better funding. And in that organization, I guess not really like Mulder and Scully because they really did the supernatural. And this really isn't supernatural. This is more like criminal gangs and stuff. It can be anyway. But anyway, so the whole point is there's part of this agency, and you join this agency, and it's the agency that sends you out on missions, similar to what D20 Modern did with their homebrew setting. This has something similar to that, but a little less, fantasy. And that's kind of a neat way to look at things. But anyway, we've talked about how the classes work. Each class goes up to 10th level. That makes sense. And then they all have their own little abilities. For example, the transporter has things like prime attributes is dexterity. Haha. They have to have a minimum score of 9. Minimum scores do exist in this game. That's pretty cool. Saving throws. Transporters are emboldened, confident, and in control when behind the wheel and receive +1 to all saving throws while behind the control of a vehicle. Combat training. Transporters are trained in knives, revolvers, semi-auto pistols, tasers, grenades, submachine guns, and one weapon designed to be fired from or are mounted to a vehicle. And any weapon, that designed to be fired from or mounted on a vehicle. They may wear light armor. Skill training. Transporters receive a bonus of +1 in any action check related to driving a ground or water vehicle, piloting an aircraft, or performing technical duties. This improves to +2 at 4th level and +3 at 5th level. All right, sorry, that looks like 8th level. All right, and then Gearhead. Begin play with any one vehicle worth $50,000 or less, rebuilt personally. At 2nd and each subsequent level, add any one vehicle upgrade of choice, see page 17, at no cost. Requires time spent in a garage or tech lab. And that segues nicely into the equipment section on here. And one of the things that the equipment section has that I think is fantastic, and that is upgrades. If you are not satisfied with the standard weapon that you get, like, a sword is a sword is a sword, right? That's how a white box tends to treat it. And personally, I'm cool with that. But if you aren't, and you're the kind of person that says, you know what, I want my sword to be special, I want to be able to upgrade my sword. Well, this game actually has rules for upgrading weapons. And obviously not all of them will work on a sword because they're designed to work with guns and rifles and pistols and things like that. But They are there. And there's also a whole section on vehicle upgrades, allowing you to expand the options that your vehicle has and make them a bit more to fit your play style. That's pretty cool. Upgrades include things like turning something into a gyrojet, or installing a recognition grip, adding a self-destruct function, or using toxic darts as ammunition. Or adding an under-barrel grenade launcher. Like, those are kind of options that you can add to your weapons to really customize your pieces to make them what you like. Vehicle upgrades include things like an ejection seat, glider wings, an oil slick you can slit out the bottom, security, so extra security, a sensor suite, and stealth technology added to your vehicle. So that's kind of neat. And so you can have those things. There's semi-trucks, delivery trucks, Jeeps, SUVs, Humvees, mid-sized cars, compacts, motorcycles, dart bikes, compact cars, all whole fair sized of different vehicles that you can pick. There's also air vehicles, which is helicopters, cargo helicopters, propeller planes, corporate jet, cargo jet, and fighter jet. Water vehicles like a jet ski, sailboat or speedboat, or even a submersible. All right, and then the rest of your equipment is handled by kits. So you just pick up, like, say, I want to have the forensics kit. Well, you don't have to know everything that's in that kit. You know, if you as a player don't have that knowledge, you just purchase the forensics kit and then, you know, kind of play up a little bit with it. And you're good to go. All right, it goes on to equipment descriptions. There's gadgets. There's other heavy weapons. It can look like things that can be mounted on vehicles. So a lot of that stuff you can slowly make and customize your weapons for your characters. Now, I'll be honest. I actually used the weapon upgrade system in this game with White Star, the Galaxy Edition, when I ran that for my students, because I really liked the upgrade system and I thought it was a neat thing to add to a science fiction setting as well. Because in science fiction settings, you know, what's cooler than having a custom-made Luger revolver? Well, a custom-made blaster. All right, I'm being a little silly there, but I think you get my drift. So it actually worked really, really well because both are white box based games and neither one kind of deviates too far from that metric. It's quite easy to take information from one, slap it into the other, and make it work. So for example, you could also take the mecha rules from White Star Galaxy Edition and bring them into White Lies and have your modern day super soldier or your modern day infiltration team have to fight a mecha built by some super scientist who is now threatening world domination for whatever reason. And that's easily done. And then after that, they could even take over the mecha, learn how to fix it, and then one of your players can suddenly, you know, have mecha piloting skills and develop that over time and have fun with that. So that's like kind of a cool thing. Plus, a lot of the monsters from various white box products can be brought over and used in any white box game, but White Lies too. So if you need something that goes bump in the night, let's say you decide you want to do something like the Hellboy BPRD, I think they call it, and you want to bring that in, that would be awesome. And that you know, you can bring in bugbears as a creature of the night and use a lot of like the rules for bugbears, but really play up their supernatural element. Same with any kind of lycanthropes. If you want to do a Vampire the Masquerade style game, but playing as the humans that trying to survive the vampires, that's fairly easy to do. You just got to bring the vampires from White Box over into White Lies. And then the rest of it is just you making sense of the situation, the social situation, because the rules are done. They're handled for the most part. There might be some slight conversion to white lies, but not much. But there's a lot of things that you can do with this game, just as it is. We've mentioned the espionage stuff. We've mentioned the heists. There's also if you want to do a Stargate kind of scenario where you're doing dimensional travel, that's really easy to do with this game. The rules are all there. And really your imagination is the limit, but you can have a lot of fun with it along the way. There's also they have a supplement for this book. I don't have that supplement in print right now, but it's all about martial arts, and so you can actually train your characters in different forms of martial arts, and have do like martial arts wushu kind of games using this basic system and that rules expansion, which is pretty cool. I have a PDF of it. I don't have it in print. I think the game shines with sort of James Bond-esque missions, and where there's a little bit of investigation, a little bit of combat, maybe a chase scene, and then a final confrontation with the villain while they're sitting there petting their cat. Uh-oh. I'm just teasing. That is something you could do. They also have they have a section on master villains because they do kind of want to play into that trope a little bit. The James Bond is strong here, but it's really not the only thing, because like I said, my first inspiration from reading this game system was the movie Ronin. I know I've said that twice already, but I'm going to say it again because that is a great inspiration for how a heist or how a sequence of events in this game system can go. All right. There's rules about how to make running henchmen. There's rules about quirks on your villains when you're trying to make a villain. Lots of cool rules about doing custom villains and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Let's see, mission area descriptions. So helping to there's what this section is all about, helping you decide what the missions are and creating kind of cool and unique missions for your players, which is pretty cool. Mission area obstacles. You're working against the clock, or maybe you're lost. Maybe there's an infection stuck in the middle of things. Mission code name, and then there's a whole section on the 4-word mission codes. Different campaign settings are talked about. Also, how establishing your own campaign setting. Pretty standard, DM advice. A little section on security systems. And security systems have different levels of security, and this is both physical as well as digital security, because it talks a little bit about that. But mostly it's about physical security, about trying to beat alarms and ID cards and things like that. Voice recognition software, that sort of thing. There is a little bit of section on computer security, but it's not very robust. I think there's a PDF that expands that a little bit, but I'll be honest, this is not really designed to do cyberpunk type stuff. That's a different game system. So if that's what you want, then you want to look at cyberpunk. But if you just want something that's a bit more modern and heisty, then this can do it. The other thing that this one could do, and it might take a little bit of finagling, but I think you can make it work, is if you want to do some sort of post-apocalyptic Fallout kind of game, but still stay within the D&D/white box family, then you could actually, as long as you're okay with, things like functioning vehicles and having, really, I think that's the biggest one. The transporter class still has to have something to do, right? Everyone else kind of fits in well with a Fallout kind of scenario, or a Twilight 2000 kind of scenario. And you could use this system to run those sorts of survivalist games, just making sure that you put a heavier emphasis on the equipment that your characters have and expending resources. And all that is, that you can do no matter what system you're playing. All right, a whole section on adversaries that gets you set up with a lot of different tropes in the area Animals are good. Supplemental training to allow you to expand what your characters can do. And then more on putting it all together, putting all the supplemental training together is what they're talking about. Here we go. The Bureau, that's what we were talking about. Bureau 19 is their setting. And in the Bureau 19, you're basically it's another secret agent bureau, but you deal with the things that other agencies don't want to deal with. And that is pretty cool. And then they end with an adventure, Operation Wounded Wolf, there's a briefing and there's a whole section. There's some maps included. They have both player maps and game master maps outline what you can do with this whole thing. And then there's another section on wrapping things up and moving forward. It's really a solid book. So like I said, I've used this. I haven't run this game in and of itself yet, but I have taken liberally from this game for things like my White Star game. I took that whole weapon modification system wholesale and just boop, took it out and put it in. I had to jiggle the prices around a little bit for items, but aside from that, it was pretty solid, and the kids really seemed to enjoy it. So I do hope at some point to run, maybe I'll do it as a solo game, but run some adventures in this game system just to give it its own time in the sun. But I wanted to take a few minutes today to talk to you all about it because I think it's pretty cool. And I realized after some checking that I actually had not covered it individually on this channel yet. I know I've mentioned it in videos before, probably even shown it off, but we really haven't talked about it itself in depth. So I think it's pretty good. It ranks high, again, on the readability and the visibility. If you're someone who has a hard time reading some books, I'd say that this one, you're going to do well with this one. And it's available on drive-thru, so it's easy to get your hands on, if I remember correctly. I really don't think you're going to have any issues. There is a lot of supplemental material, so if you're the kind of person that likes, more splat and more information, that's good. There's the whole group of small adventures. There's also a supplement that turns it into a modern fantasy game. If you want to have, goblins and bugbears in your White Lies game and spellcasting wizards, that supplement is also out there. It's solid. I have no complaints. And that's pretty much the whole poop and nothing but the poop. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I hope to do more of these recommendations in the future as I get through my library and see what I have and have not talked about on the channel already. Thank you so much again for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and peace be with you. Bye-bye now.